Welcome, everybody. I'm Beth Chenette, Board Chair, and I would like to call the meeting to order. Our first order of business is to ascertain that a quorum is present, as Article 4, Section 5 of our bylaws require it. Would anyone like to make a motion? Thank you. Have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. You have before you the minutes of the 7th.
Let's go stuck through my memory. She's on it like every day. Must be the weather for tonight. I know you'll need me soon. I know.
You have before you the minutes of the 75th annual meeting held on May 14th, 2025. I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented. You have a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
You make me turn on my TV.
Included in the annual report before you are the audited financial statements prepared by our CPA firm, Clifton Larson Allen LLP. I will entertain a motion to accept the audit report as presented. Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Included in the annual report before you are the CEO, chairpersons, and supervisory committee reports. I will entertain a motion to accept those reports as presented. Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're honored to have so many of you with us today, both here in the room and also virtually. Today, we have more than 20 members online, including 3 board members who are Charles Rumis, Karen McGrath, and Michael Posabut. So if we could all just kind of wave to the camera back there, say hello. Thanks, guys. So I'd like to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the board and also to the supervisory committee for all the time and effort that they give to the oversight of this organization. We understand that many of you have demands on your time, and I appreciate the willingness to volunteer and serve the credit union. We also extend our gratitude to the employees and management who are working hard every day to provide members with the best possible experience doing business with us. Your dedication and commitment are what truly make NorthCountry a special place to be. I'd also like to extend a huge thank you to our CEO, Bob Morgan, for his steadfast leadership and guidance through another successful year. Thank you, Bob. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the election results. The nominating committee presented a slate of candidates this year. There were no petitions to add to the ballot, and therefore voting is not required. Charles J. Rumis and Karen McGrath have been declared by proclamation to fill 3-year terms. For our unfinished business, we have 2 outgoing board members who I would like to recognize. Unfortunately, one of them could not be here today. The other one, Michael Posabut, is online with us. So thank you, Michael, for being able to join. The first is Mike Peterson. Mike originally joined the NorthCountry board in 2019 and served 2 different terms since that time. While he'll be leaving us in an official capacity, Mike will undoubtedly remain one of NorthCountry's biggest advocates. His early personal experiences with the credit union left a long-standing positive impression and created a fan for life. So thank you, Mike. Mike was unable to join us today, but we are pleased to be able to be presenting a check in his name for $1,000 to the Alberg Family Clubhouse, which is a nonprofit child care and early learning center. And finally, Michael Posabut. Michael has completed his term on the board and will be greatly missed. Arguably, he has strong credit union lineage, but he also brings his own high level of business acumen. However, I am thrilled to be able to tell you that he has agreed to continue to serve on the board's technology committee. So we're not really letting him go and can actually absolutely tap his knowledge and experience. So it's great. And Michael, as a thank you for your board service, we're going to be making a donation for $1,000 to the Central Vermont Humane Society in your name. At this time, I'd like to ask if there is any new business to be brought forward. Okay. Hearing none, we will be moving on to our CEO report. And I'd like to welcome Bob Morgan to the stage.
Thank you, Beth, and thank all of you for being with us today. My name is Bob Morgan. I'm CEO of NorthCountry Federal Credit Union. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this year's annual meeting. I like to walk around a little bit, so I'm going to come down from the stage and do that. Before we begin, I again want to thank three very special groups of people. First, our planning committee. This consists of NorthCountry staff members who, in addition to their regular responsibilities, have planned every detail that you see here today. Our board of directors. The board acts as the strategic guide and strategic lens for the credit union, and it's an all-volunteer board of members. And they give countless hours and incredible service to me and to this credit union. And our supervisory committee, again, it's a committee of credit union member volunteers who serve as the audit committee for the organization and really have the keen focus of making sure that credit unions and members' assets remain protected. So please join me in recognizing the contributions of these three very special groups. Thank you. All annual meetings include a review of the previous year's financial results, and this year is no different. I'm very proud to say that 2025 was an outstanding year for the credit union, with notable growth in assets, loans, members, strong financial performance, and our members' loyalty and satisfaction levels took one step closer to truly reaching world-class status. Now, these results do not happen by chance, and they are not an accident. Instead, they're the result of the dedication, effort, skill, and capabilities of our entire NorthCountry employee group, my fellow coworkers. So please join me in recognizing their collective success for an excellent year. Thank you. Now, the remainder of my discussion today is going to be focused on a member's journey towards financial wellness. And to get us started, I'll draw your attention to the visual you see here on the screen. This is something that many of you are familiar with, planting a tree. Think of the steps that are involved in that. You find a sapling, you find just the right spot for it with the appropriate mix of sun and shade. You dig a hole, you make sure the soil is fertile, plant the tree, add plenty of water and care, and you wait. And at first, nothing happens. But if you wait long enough, over time, the roots begin to grow. And a little while later, the trunk becomes bigger and wider. The tree grows taller. At some point, the branches grow high and leaves proliferate and become plentiful at the top. And the tree truly reaches a state of thriving. The point of this is that growth happens in stages. It's not linear, it's not all at once, but it happens in distinct stages. And that very same concept is true for people, for members, as they navigate their own financial journeys. There are stages with that include access to financial services, access to branches, access to products that are appropriate for them to begin their financial journey. Empowerment, that's where they've given tools, resources, advice, guidance, and support in navigating their financial plan. And if we're successful, members reach a point of financial wellness, which includes stability, independence, and financial freedom to really make choices to be able to pursue their dreams. So I want to talk about each of these stages in just a little bit more detail. And again, the first stage is access, because it's a simple truth. Without access, there can be no empowerment. Without empowerment, there can be no stability. Now, NorthCountry comes from a place of saying yes. We are absolutely committed to helping every single one of our members create a financial plan appropriate for them to be able to accomplish their goals. In order to do that, it's simply vital that they have access to products, services, locations, and the credit union in a way that's appropriate to them. One of the ways we do that is through our branch network. The credit union has 13 branches that are located throughout our field of membership. We're currently building our 14th in Woodsville, New Hampshire, but right now we have 13 throughout our field of membership. And notably, multiple of these were placed and located in communities where all other financial institutions had left before NorthCountry came in. These communities truly would have been financial deserts if it weren't for the credit union. And we saw the potential in those communities and believed in the dreams of its residences, and know that when we locate in them and partner with the communities and the community members, we can have a real positive impact. Another way we provide access is through some of our most innovative products. Many of these were co-designed with community partners that help support underserved and underbanked populations. And we have done this and will continue to work with community partners when we identify a specific need, because our mission is to make dreams come true for all. And it is simply vital to be able to have products and services that allow everyone to participate with our credit union. And access is more than what we can do alone. That's why we strategically engage with community partners, like so many of you who are here in this room, and a few who are listed on the screen as well, that provide access to other critical resources needed by those very same members in those very same communities. After access is provided, empowerment's critical, because that's where you get the tools, resources, and support that you need to be able to navigate your financial journey. One of the ways we provide and empower our members is through our partnership with GreenPath Financial, which provides no cost, confidential financial counseling to any member that needs it and is experiencing financial difficulty. We also provide our members Savvy Money, which is a credit monitoring and simulation tool that's embedded in our online and mobile banking environments. What's really neat and special about this tool is it not only gives you your credit score, but it allows you to assess the impact of the actions you're considering taking before you make them, so you can truly make the most informed financial decisions possible. But empowerment is so much more than who we partner with. It truly is who we are and what we do at NorthCountry. And that's why we have multiple certified financial counselors on staff, able to meet with members who are experiencing financial difficulty and able and ready to be able to create a financial plan forward. It's also why we have a team of employees who do financial wellness check-ins if we see signs that members may be experiencing financial stress, just to check in, just to see if there's anything we can do to help. And most importantly, it's why we invest so much in the professional development, skills, and capabilities of our entire team, so that as a member, when you're meeting with a team member in a branch or on a telephone. The person you're meeting with is knowledgeable about all of our products and services and able to understand your individual unique needs as a member and help you create your own individual financial plan to accomplish your goals. And if we're successful, members will achieve a state of wellness. And that's what our mission is to do, because our mission is to make dreams come true for all by offering personalized financial solutions. As a cooperative, we are inspired and empowered to do the right thing for our members and employees. And we truly live our mission when we help members save money or improve their credit or plan for retirement. And we know we're accomplishing our mission because we track the interest and payment savings members achieve by refinancing higher rate loans and credit cards or other obligations elsewhere to much more favorable rates at the credit union. And last year, we helped our members save nearly $5 million in interest and payment savings. That's just a staggering figure. And you think about what the impact that is and what it allows people to do. It makes it easier to be able to think about starting a business or to save for a down payment or to think about helping a child who's graduating high school think about college. It makes it easier, more attainable to achieve your dreams. And we also know that we're achieving our mission not just through the numbers, but through real member stories. And I want to just share two of them here with you today. The first member said, I began banking at NorthCountry just out of high school when I bought my first pickup to start my business. A year later, they were the only bank that would help me with a business loan. And when a piece of machinery failed at a critical moment, they stepped in to help. And they've helped fund all the growing I've done over the years. Or this member who said, when buying my first home was a long journey, and NorthCountry was there for every step. Over the years, they provided me multiple pre-approval letters, and I saved every one as a reminder of my growth. And when the right home finally appeared, I reached out to Ken, who immediately stepped in to help even while on vacation. And his attention to detail and responsiveness made the entire process seem calm and manageable. And what strikes me about these stories is that they speak of the members' journey, the members' journeys towards their goals. And they both really focus on that concept of growth. This was growth that the members were able to achieve for themselves and the growth that the credit union helped enable. And you can just feel the pride that the members have about being able to reach their goals and accomplish their dreams. And when we get stories like this every day, and this is a favorite part of the job. When we get these stories, we know these are the moments we are truly living our mission. So why does it matter? It matters because financial stress affects everything. It's not just your money. It also affects your health, your job performance, your relationships. And the antithesis is also true. Financial wellness can support thriving in all those areas as well. It's critically important. And it matters because this is our mission. This is what we're here to do. We're here to serve the members, and we're here to help members' dreams come true. Your dreams are our dreams, and when you succeed, we share in that success too. So looking ahead, NorthCountry will continue to be the place where access is the foundation, empowerment's the pathway, and wellness and thrivings are the outcomes. Because we know when the roots are strong and care is given, growth becomes unstoppable. So thank you for being with us today, for trusting us, for partnering with us and being part of our mission. You are why we're here, and serving you is what we are here to do. It's been my pleasure to deliver a few brief remarks to you today. And in a little bit, we will bring up a community panel to talk about all these concepts in more detail and from different angles. But before we do, I would welcome the opportunity to answer any questions from the membership. Yes.
Wait for the microphone, please.
Perfect. Wait for the microphone. Here we go.
I just had a question about protecting people from scams. If
Yes.
someone were to call and say, I need so many credit cards for X amount of dollars, how is there a way to help protect people against making those bad decisions?
It's requiring ongoing effort and more so. One of the things we're really proud of is in our retail area, all of our branches have outreach goals, and part of those for a number of our branches, and Kendra's in the audience somewhere, you can raise your hand. Hello. There it is. Kendra and other member advocate managers have been reaching out to senior housing folks and other folks who are more susceptible to scams and doing fraud awareness seminars. That's not enough in itself. We obviously have information on our homepage. That's not enough in ourselves. We, as in October is Cybersecurity Month, and we're going to be bundling cybersecurity focus from a member perspective, but also fraud awareness in general, and doing a heavy blitz on it. It's a lot. I mean, I'm sure that many of us are getting fraud calls, likely multiple a day at this point. And, you know, at every touch point, we have to be finding ways to do more to really ensure that members don't give out credentials, or if somebody calls and says, just tell me what that code is that on that text you just have, not to do that, because the fraud, the examples of fraud right now are everywhere, and it's just going to take ongoing effort, and we need to continue to do more to support our members. Thank you.
Do you have an anticipation or a contingency plan if the government comes and asks for people's social security numbers,
So,
as they are doing in other cases?
yeah, our plan for kind of responding to the government is consistent with any sort of requests that they give. It has to include a valid warrant. It would go through our attorney and legal process. We've developed procedures around that, and we've communicated the procedures out to our staff. So all that would be coordinated through our risk management area and our attorneys. We do respond to valid requests from law enforcement as it relates to records with an appropriate judicial warrant, and we'll continue to do that. But it's a process, and we have provided training out to our retail team members on that. Yes. Just hold for the mic.
The financial counselors that you mentioned, are those different from your collaboration with Green Path? And what exactly does Green Path do for us?
Yeah, so it's different. Green Path is a relationship, of financial wellness partner relationship that we formed that provides education and a number of things. But if members are having financial difficulties, if we're in conversations with them and we learn that they're really kind of overwhelmed, they will offer at no cost and able to meet virtually or on the phone to provide support to our members. In addition to that, we have a number of certified financial counselors on staff. Ariel leads our financial wellness efforts in the organization and is one of those counselors who can provide direct and in-person or member to credit union employee support as needed as well. Yes, we have another question.
Can you talk a little bit about your charitable giving and your plan for charitable giving for the future?
I'd love to. North Country gave over $634,000 in charitable gifts to the community last year. And for an organization of our size, that's a really substantial number. We have targeted to, it's not exact, to always give back around 10% of our net earnings back in the previous year. And I had mentioned just how important our engagement with the community is and our engagement with community partners. Our members' well-being needs to be supported by more entities than just North Country, right? So that's why charitable giving is so important. As an organization, charitable giving is divided up a number of different ways. There, I'm back. Our branches have some discretionary funds that they give. We have a CARES committee, which consists of non-management employees from various departments and branches that look at requests generally on $5,000 and below. Large dollar requests, it's part of the function that our board does because it's so important. The decision to strategically give to community partners is just, again, a strategic decision, and the board offers its support in looking at and vetting the requests that come in. So it's a huge part of our strategy. It's absolutely vital. It supports everything I mentioned about a member's journey towards wellness, and it's something that we unequivocally will continue into the future. We have another question.
I'm a member of an electric co-op, and they recently implemented a program to help people, low-income people, assist them and pay their bills. You apply, and if you qualify, you get a discount off your bill every month.
Okay.
Can you talk about things the credit union is doing to assist low-income people in home ownership, given that the price of housing is ridiculous these days?
Yeah, you're right about the price of housing. In the annual report, it speaks to some of the first-time home buyer grants that we were able to leverage last year. I think it was about $250,000 that was leveraged through some of our partners that we were able to provide to our members. Part of the focus of the credit union is really working and serving the needs of all Vermonters, kind of regardless of income. We partner with the Champlain Housing Trust. It was up here on the slide earlier. They provide homebuyer counseling support, access to other resources and grants as well. They also have been building a significant amount of properties, working on the supply angle as well. So it's a multifaceted effort. It's really, really important. And it's something we're going to continue to do to help people on their home buying journey or whatever their goals are, frankly. So thank you for the question. Any other questions? Last call for that. Okay, what's going to happen now is we will officially adjourn the meeting. We'll take a 2 to 3 minute break while we reposition the stage. And I will be moderating a panel of some of our community partners to talk about some of these concepts and financial wellness and wellness in general at a deeper level. So 2 to 3 minute break, and thank you for listening to me.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. We are officially adjourned.
Oh, leave it on this. Okay. Take this off. It's gonna be hard. Carry that up. Just like that. Yep. Yeah. I didn't think I got it. Oh, yeah. Okay, relax. We have 5? One more. Okay, thank you. Make sure it's unmuted. Yep, so everybody, there's a little switch on this right here. That's down. It's off. Click it up and then you're active. It works best.
Thanks everybody for being patient with us while we reposition the stage. I'm really excited about what we're going to do next. So at the start of, thank you.
Folks, could we have your attention? Please simmer down so we can start on the program. Thank you.
last year, after we completed the annual meeting, I was getting feedback from our board, and they gave the suggestion of, wouldn't it be fun, instead of getting kind of an outside presenter, which we had done for, gosh, the past 12 years, to get a panel of some of our community partners to talk about issues about financial journey, wellness, some of the issues affecting people in our community that step outside of finances together. And I thought it was a great idea. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to be joined by our guest panel, who I'll quickly introduce here. We have Tawnya, Kristen, who's the executive director of the Green Mountain United Way. Courtney, Poquette is a personal financial literacy teacher at Winooski High School and helped co-create our Steps to Success program with us. Kathy Benoit is the CEO of Notch, doing great work in rural healthcare up in Franklin County, and really happy to have this Vermont State Treasurer, Michael Pieciak, with us as well. So also, we were supposed to have one of our staff members, Assia, Hamana, who was a Steps to Success graduate and ended up working for us on the panel. She had a recent death in the family, is just unable to join. So, but we're still looking forward to this conversation. I thought it would be great to start if we could, if each of you could take a turn and reintroduce yourself, give a little background about your organization, and briefly discuss the ways in which you partner with NorthCountry today. Tawnya, can we start with you?
Absolutely. I feel very Brene Brown. So, yes. So let's talk. I'm Tawnya, Kristen, Executive Director of Green Mountain United Way. I've been with United Way for close to 11 years now. Have an additional 20 years in nonprofit experience, including King Street Center, which I believe is in the house today. So yes, King Street, great organization. Part of my mission when I took over United Way was really to figure out where are the voices that were not being heard in our community. And if you can reflect back about 10 or 11 years ago, that was definitely the voice of the working family. It really offered an opportunity to think about how can we produce a program that can support people that are showing up each and every day at work, and really investing in them as individuals, and in turn, our community is invested in. So that brought us to offering Working Bridges, which United Way Northwest is the founder and the amazing just brilliance behind that program. And we began offering Working Bridges across the 5 counties that we serve, which is the Northeast Kingdom, Washington, and Orange County, which includes the poorest counties in our state. Couldn't be more proud to be offering Working Bridges, and I'm sure we'll get into how we utilize NorthCountry in that way. But so happy to be here. And if you would have told me 20 years ago that I was sitting at a bank annual meeting in very comfortable chairs with Mike Pieciak to my right, I would have said, okay, what's the punchline? But more to come on how it all comes together in caring for people and caring about their financial stability.
All right, I'm Courtney Poquette, and I've been teaching business and personal finance at Winooski High School for 20 years. We were actually one of the first schools in the state to require personal finance for every student to graduate. And so I'm really excited, and I will probably talk more about that because that's a passion and a mission of mine, is to get that to more young people so that they're learning and not making some of these mistakes that many of us had to learn just through figuring it out on our own. I also co-teach a class at Champlain College for other teachers who are looking to teach personal finance. So I'm trying to improve things in that way as well. And then today I reflected a lot on the partnership that I've had with NorthCountry over the years, and I'm so appreciative. It started with a teacher grant for supplies for my classroom. I applied for that many, many years ago. And then that transitioned into reaching out and making connections with the great people from NorthCountry. And so the Steps to Success program that many people have mentioned was actually something that came from that. People reached out and said, how can we help Winooski graduates? And I said, one of the things they really need is just to practice this a little bit more and put it into to get some experience. And so they started a summer program for our seniors. And Antoinette Bennett-Jones, I'm going to shout you out because she's here and teaches that program. And so that's just been wonderful. I think we're on 6 or 7 years now. Okay, for Winooski students, and we had 16 of our 40 students who are graduating this year apply to be part of that program. They go, they practice mock job interviews, they get to shadow people at the credit union, and then 4 of those students actually have jobs at the credit union now, which is pretty impressive. So, yeah. And then NorthCountry has helped in a couple of other ways that I just want to mention is we've had school-wide reality fairs where it seems like I feel like you must close the credit union on that day because everybody shows up. It's awesome. But the students get to experience what it's like to have a paycheck and have to make decisions, and they get to talk to the mortgage and the loan lending department, and then they get to talk to the IT department. And so they get to talk to everybody and make all the financial decisions for their futures, which is great. And then we have a passport for financial independence. So I love that I can call NorthCountry up and just say, hey, I have this idea. Do you mind helping us with that? And so Ariel and Jeff have both been wonderful in making those things happen for us. So really appreciate being here and the partnership. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kathy Benoit. I'm the Executive Director of Northern Tier Center for Health, which is an FQHC up in Franklin and Grand Isle County. I've been with the organization for about 23 years now. I originally started in a CFO position, so finance is deeply rooted for me. So that's my background, but I have been the CEO for the last 3 years. So if you're not familiar with the Federally Qualified Health Center, we are partially federally funded. We do receive a small federal grant, a very small, probably less than 5% of our overall revenue is generated through that funding source. But we have 8 medical clinics that are in Franklin County and 1 in Grand Isle, actually. We own 4 community pharmacies. We have 2 dental practices, and we have a social grocery store in Richford. We have other services such as a thrift store in Richford that deals with some household needs. The grocery store, obviously, if you think of an FQHC, you might not correlate a grocery store. We call it a social grocery store because we have programming that's linked directly to our medical services, such as a produce prescription program. So we don't write prescriptions just for drugs, which is a new concept. So it's I think our linkage to the credit union was that they dealt with the financial desert in Richford. We'd been without a bank, I do believe, for 3 years, maybe, before the credit union was willing to come and take that on in our community. I think has been very successful. It just goes to show, when people partner together, how they can resolve one of the access issues in communities. And it can't just be one person resolving all those. It has to be a group of people that specialize in certain services. And by us partnering together, it usually is successful. So I think that's why I'm here to show the success of what you guys do at the credit union that supports communities that I'm responsible for serving.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike Pieciak. I'm the state treasurer here in Vermont. And, I grew up in Brattleboro and had early exposure to credit unions in our community. And I think the mission of the credit unions generally and sort of the mission that I saw in our community in Brattleboro growing up are so closely aligned. I mean, the example broadly from the community, but specifically from my parents, was all about finding ways to give back to Brattleboro and support local Brattleboro businesses and local Brattleboro organizations. My dad made sure that we shopped on Main Street regardless of what we needed and that we supported local businesses. And that's what you do when you support a credit union. You keep your money local and you make sure it's passing through the economy, which has a multiplier effect. And, my dad, I would joke with him. I'd say, geez, Dad, like, every Saturday we have to go to this diner on the end of Main Street and the food's not very good and the silverware is never very clean. Why do we have to go here? And there's so many other options. He'd say, well, because they're my client and they show up for us and I am going to show up for them. And I think that is something that the credit union industry broadly and NorthCountry does specifically, very, very well. And my mom, she started a soup kitchen in Brattleboro right before I was born and ran it for 40 years. And she was very engaged with every single member of the community, no matter what their background was. I was a little kid going around with her when she would serve food to people that were shut in. I'd spend time with her in the kitchen when I was a young kid, and people would come in from all walks of life. And regardless of who walked through the door, everybody with and love and dignity and respect. And it really instilled in me this idea, this value that in a community, everybody matters, everybody has value, and everybody deserves dignity. And that's the standard I try to hold myself to as a public official. I think it's the standard that NorthCountry is holding them to as a community organization, making sure that those opportunities, those economic opportunities are available to everybody in a community, everybody in a state. And, I remember when I first ran for treasurer, I went to every single town in Vermont. And when I went to Richford, I met with the town administrator and they talked about how worried they were about the bank closing and how it meant lack of access to capital, how it meant folks weren't going to be coming downtown anymore. People were going to have to drive to Enosburg, I think it was, to have the closest bank. So that's an example of everybody matters, making sure that every Vermonter has access to financial services. And I applaud the credit union for doing that. From my personal story, I remember I was living in Vermont. I got into law school in Miami and I decided I was going to go to law school and I was going to go to that school. And I think I had like 3 days to buy a car and be able to drive there for the start of school. So I went to River Valley Credit Union and they were able to make it happen in like 2.5 days, which was pretty remarkable. So I always appreciate the credit union industry for their speed and their efficiency in helping people and their members in need. But with NorthCountry, we've been able to work together on a number of financial literacy initiatives that has been really wonderful. But the one that we're really excited about is with Jeff Smith and a pilot project at Springfield Correctional Facility to provide financial empowerment to individuals that are currently incarcerated, that are on their way to becoming re-entered into society. And, one of the challenges that folks have is how do they access financial services? It's a real challenge. And how are they going to pay their rent if they can't put their paycheck somewhere safe and then write a check? Or how are they going to pay their utility bill? Or how are they going to even get their utilities turned on? So there are all these barriers financially to people being successful once they leave incarceration, both in terms of education and in terms of access. And I think we had maybe like 16 participants this year that all graduated 100% from the program. They now have access and ability to get a membership and get accounts with the credit union. But they also had a really empowering and powerful experience together learning about financial literacy. And now it's being expanded to the women's facility in South Burlington as well, 2 facilities. Oh, I've already done 2 classes there. So it's already expanded into South Burlington. So this is just a wonderful example, again, of thinking about everybody matters. Everybody deserves dignity and everybody has value, and they're demonstrating it and living it every day.
Thank you for those great introductions and stories. During my talk, I spent a fair amount of time talking about the sort of prerequisite of access and how that's just was needed to achieve. For the credit union, it was financial wellness, but I think it holds true across kind of a variety of needs. So if we think of access more globally and not just to finances through each of your unique lenses, wondering if you could share insights of where the greatest challenges with access are right now for people and how your organizations support that. We'll start with you again, Tawnya.
Okay. Access. Well, when we think about what it takes to even walk into a bank and feel comfortable and feel like you qualify in some way to be able to open an account or to receive a loan in some way, there are many things within our society that are structured to really limit that access for many people. One is low or no credit. If we've ever experienced that personally, we know how that can feel and how that can influence our ability to really pursue, housing, transportation, college, additional education. So one of the things that we really look for to really build with people is their opportunity to build their credit, which seems simple in many ways. But sometimes it takes a little bit more, a deeper dive into that. And when I think about financial coaching, Ariel, you're brilliant at this. She has worked with so many of the working families that we support. I have Blair here as well, who is another financial coach through Green Mountain United Way, and Connie Beal, another financial genius with United Way Northwest. When we show up to help people feel more comfortable and to determine how do I access finance or capital, the capital, we also have to start at how do you feel right now as far as your worth as a human being? Do you solely measure your worth as a human being based on what is in your checking account, based on what car you drive, based on what house you drive? How do we start looking at you as a whole person and developing that internal worth and sense of independence and prosperity without a dollar amount associated to it? It's hard. It's hard, especially if you have been in a cycle of scarcity, in poverty, or not in that, quote, privileged area. But once you start tapping into all of those underlying factors, then you can have a much easier discussion with someone about, let's talk about true financial independence. Do you need to have that brand new, shiny $80,000 truck when you're working third shift in a manufacturing shift? That says status to you, that says worth, that says value. Yes, you might need that, but let's bring it down a notch and say, let's talk about financial stability and access to additional things in your life, and access, more importantly, to your value as a person and how you feel about yourself. So very roundabout and indirect non-banking terminology of access, but I think all the people that are up here with me, we look at it through a human lens first, but we know that money is so incredibly important as to your status and where you can succeed in this community.
So I'm going to think about from the high school lens and just accessing the education. And one of the things that our school did is our school is fortunate to have a new design, new renovation that we went through a couple of years ago. And we spent a lot of time thinking about that as a community when we were designing the school, like what are the barriers preventing students from getting to school? And one of the first things that we came up with was sometimes students had to miss a whole day for a medical or a dental appointment. And so the school put a lot of attention into making a health office where that way the doctors and dentists would come in once a week and students could have their appointments right there during the school day and not have to leave, which was nice. And then as far as transportation, sometimes that was a barrier, and then there's a busing shortage. And so one of the things that the community did was they trained parents on how to be bus drivers. So parents went through the licensing that they needed to drive the bus, which was nice. Another barrier that we have in our community is there's a lot of food scarcity and food insecurity with our students and families. So we have the Vermont Food Bank come to our school. And I know NorthCountry has been a great help with funding some of that and getting the food there that the students need. And then the other thing that my students are struggling with a lot is the cost of college and higher education. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that. And so one of the things that we did is I run a student school store in my classroom, and the students, they're kind of my boss. I always say, I joke about it, but not really, because if I mess up, they scold me for that. But they decided that this year, all of the money that they raised was going to scholarships for college. And so we're going to be probably able to give out $6,000 this year to the students from the work that they're doing. And so those are just some of the ways that we try to remove some of the barriers so that way students can access.
So from the healthcare lens, I guess, so access to me means a couple of different things. A lot of people think of the word access and they think, well, I can't get an appointment with my doctor. That's not necessarily the issues that we're dealing with when we think more in depth about access, I guess. People can't get to their appointments because they don't have transportation. They don't want to go to their appointment because they have a financial barrier, like a copay. Those are all real things that are happening in healthcare right now. People don't have, if they've got mobility issues and they can't have telehealth services because of broadband issues, that's a real issue in healthcare now. Medications as well, just access to medication, being able to be, I guess, managed well by their primary care provider now is an issue, just because there's I would say more of a shortage in specialty care, and again an access from the perspective of getting transportation to a specialist. That is a huge barrier of care that's happening currently in healthcare. We experience a lot of people that can't focus on their physical illness because they've got so many other conditions in their life that are impacting their health and their decision making. So that's very, very hard to overcome when you are a primary care provider and you're not necessarily trained to deal with all of these issues. So as a healthcare provider, we've instituted what we call care coordination nurses. And these are people that help to wrap around those patients. They help to identify all the needs that are really necessary to deal with this person's overall wellness. And that could be anything from a financial need, a housing, a transportation, a job issue, issues with their children, even issues with their parents. It comes, I think, completely full circle. And it's very encompassing of everybody. I think everyone has the same needs. It's just some people have more resources and able to deal with those needs a little better. But we do try to eliminate all those barriers as much as we can. We rely a lot on our community partners and what they specialize in, because we can't do it all ourselves. So it's very important that we realize the members in our community that can help us and lean on them when we can.
So just to stick with the healthcare theme for a minute, we in our office see this real connection between your financial health and your physical health, as was discussed earlier. And there's a couple of things that we've done to try to help improve that access for health care. One is around the issue of medical debt, which does end up being a burden and a barrier for a lot of people because they feel ashamed that they have medical debt. They're worried their provider won't see them if they owe them medical debt. And then they also don't want to accumulate more medical debt as well. And we passed a bill last year through the legislature unanimously and partnered with an entity called Undo Medical Debt. And we asked for $1 million of money that had already been sent to our office. We wanted it repurposed for this purpose. And we're going to be able to purchase up to $100 million of medical debt for over 65,000 Vermonters and eliminate it completely from them, which is great. And it's an automatic program, so people don't have to apply. It'll be done. We're negotiating with hospitals as we speak, and we'll be able to make more announcements about that in the future. The other thing that we're working on this legislative session is a prescription drug discount program that would make it cheaper for Vermonters to buy their prescription drugs. It allows us to enter into a state partnership called ArrayRx. The state of Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, and Connecticut are already part of this, and we're using our collective power to be able to get pharmaceutical drugs at a better negotiated price and then pass those savings on to Vermonters. So in Connecticut, people are already seeing savings of a couple $100 a month that are using the program, people that have high prescription drug needs. So that'll be millions and millions of dollars of savings here in Vermont. It just passed the Senate unanimously yesterday, and it's on its way to the governor's desk. So I hope the governor will sign it, and we look forward to getting that program up and running in Vermont, as soon as we can. The other piece on the financial angle, one of the first initiatives we had in our office was looking at the issue of access to retirement security. So that's a big issue for Americans. A lot of people worry about not having enough for retirement. And when you look at the data, the big reason people don't save for retirement is they don't have access to a workplace retirement program. So they don't have a pension fund, they don't have a 401k, they just don't have any retirement benefit because a lot of Vermonters work for small businesses, small organizations. It's expensive for those organizations to be able to provide a retirement program. And even though they can do it on their own, it's enough of a barrier that people don't, and they don't know where to start and they don't know how to get going. So we passed in the legislature, again, unanimously, a proposal called Vermont Saves. And what it does is a publicly administered retirement program run by our office. And for those employers that don't have a 401k, they don't offer a retirement benefit, they're required to sign up for Vermont Saves. And then their employees are opted into the program, and a Roth IRA is automatically set up for them. They can opt out at any time. They can change their deduction at any time. They can invest however they want. But if they don't make any of those choices, it nudges them toward a better financial decision for them. It puts them into the Roth IRA. It starts to deduct 5% from their paycheck. It puts that into a target date fund that closely aligns with their retirement age based on their actual age. So it's a program that we are really excited about. It's now been up and running for a year. There's about 6,100 Vermonters that are now saving for their retirement. Collectively, they've saved about $7.5 million in just 1 year. The average account value is now over $1,000, which there was a report recently that said the average American had $955 saved for retirement. And that's because a lot of people have 401ks and they're well set, but then there are a lot of people that have almost nothing. So we have now, 6,000 Vermonters that are now building a more financially secure future for themselves. And the last point I'll make on that is when you look at the data, it's great for people to be saving at any age, but 55% of the people that are saving are under the age of 40, and 30% of the people that are saving are under the age of 30. So a lot of young people putting money away that will really grow and compound. By the time they reach retirement, it will be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a win for the employer. This is all done at no cost to them. It's a win for that individual that will have a more dignified retirement. It's a win for the economy. There'll be more discretionary income that people have in their retirement. They can stay here in Vermont and afford to do so. And it's a win for the state budget because people are going to be less dependent on state benefits and federal benefits as well. So we're really excited about that Vermont Saves program.
One of the things that strikes me just listening to the answers over the previous two questions is how we're all really dependent on the interconnectedness of other community partners, right? And you all are great community partners, but we have many others out in the audience as well. So if you serve or work for or volunteer for a community nonprofit that's doing some of this great work, if you could just briefly stand so we can recognize you all together. That's really cool. Thank you for your great work too. What we're speaking of is, and the work that you're all doing is hard. It takes time, it takes resources, and to make it sustainable, it's important to kind of create success, create, measure, and then socialize success measures, right? To be able to show the impact of the work that we're achieving. I'm going to reverse the order on this a little bit. So Mike, you're up first, but I'm wondering if you could share, what are your success metrics? How do you know if you're having an impact, and how do you make that known to the public?
Right now, when we think about the issues that are confronting Vermont, I think the broadest way you can frame all of the challenges is just around affordability. The cost of living in Vermont is really high and it's really challenging for people. And our salaries are not keeping up with the rate of inflation and the rate that those costs are going up. And it's been a challenge in our state for some time. So when I think of the broadest issue that's impacting that in our state, it's around demographics. Our state's getting older and our workforce is not getting larger, it's getting smaller. So we need to be thinking about what are the things that are contributing to that and what are the things that we can do to try to reverse that. So the broad metrics I think about and look at is our population growing and is our population getting younger? I'd like to see both of those things. I'd like to see our population grow and our workforce grow. I'd like to see our median age get younger. Again, the last 10 years, it's been going in the other direction. So how do we try to work to do that? And, you know, there's building more housing in Vermont won't solve all of our problems. But when I look at all of our problems that we have, not building housing means we can't solve any of those other problems. It's sort of the key, I think, to helping younger people be able to move here, stay here. I think it's the key to helping older Vermonters find a place to downsize in their community and be able to age in their community. So I think housing is the key on trying to solve those demographic indicators, which if we reverse them will make life easier for everybody. It will mean we have more taxpayers, more revenue, more ability to spread those costs out that we experience as a small state, a rural state, which makes us even harder to pay for all those costs because we have to have multiple of them. We have to have multiple hospitals. We have to have multiple schools. We have to have multiple highways and bridges. We're not sort of a compact state or a city that is more urban and more dense. So it's a little bit harder for us. But those are the two big indicators that I think I always keep my eye on. And I think we'll measure success by seeing that workforce grow and by seeing that workforce get younger.
And I would agree on a lot of those things. So some of the successes that I would say Notch has had, and I'm going to preface by saying there's so much more that can be done, but I feel like we've got to reward ourselves for what we've achieved thus far. So we've been dealing with things like the housing concerns. We actually have a dormitory in Richford where we allow staff members to stay if necessary until they can find permanent housing. It's been able to offer us the opportunity to accept students from University of New England, dental students, where they come on a rotation in 14 weeks, and it's very hard for them to find housing, and that's the only way we can get these students in our region. So we've been addressing those things in that way. I talked briefly about the thrift store, but that is something, and I'm glad you mentioned your shop in the high school. It's the same concept, and we actually award 4 scholarships at Notch every year, and the proceeds are generated from that thrift store. Those are donated items that community members bring in, and they recognize that by donating those items, it offers the opportunity of scholarships, and that's why they support it. I would say the market is another thing that we took on as a healthcare organization to deal with the food desert that was in Richford. People in Richford would not have had access to fresh produce within a 14-mile radius, which considered it a food desert. So that was something the health center board members felt very adamant about making sure that it was retained in that community. To be a size of a community like Richford, which is about 3,500 people, and to have medical, dental, and pharmacy, a grocery store, there's so many services, the bank now, there's just so many services that are offered in that small community that the communities sometimes don't realize that is not normal. That's not normal to have all those services available to you in rural communities, and not a lot of people are willing to step up and actually provide those services. There's so much in the communities that we've been able to do, helping out people that have retired. Pharmacy services for Notch have been at the outcome of a private individual retiring, and they felt very adamant that they didn't want to shut down those pharmacies. They wanted it to be retained in those communities, and that's when they approached us, and we were able to accommodate keeping that pharmacy open in those small communities. So that's another, I think, very important aspect, that we've been supportive of the private practices, whether it be medical practices, dental practices, or pharmacies. We've been able to support them and retain those services in the area. Being that we're a larger organization. I would say another success from my perspective is that we've been able to retain a lot of really good staff. We're considered a large employer. We have got about 250 employees that work for the organization. 10% of our staff have worked there for over 20 years. That's huge. It's huge. So that says a lot. I think, and we'll continue to do so. Clearly, we've got some health quality measures that put us at the top as well. We've been recognized several times for our quality medical standards that we've got. We're patient-centered and medical home recognized. We've been recognized at a federal level for quality initiative programs. So we are what I would consider a top-notch provider in the area.
So success beyond test scores. We'll go with that. So some of the success that I see in my classroom are just students feeling empowered after learning about personal finance. So I have students that stay after school to file their taxes, and they tell me that before personal finance, they would get their W-2s and they would throw them away because they didn't know what it meant. And so this is why the education, I think, is so important. They get the confidence where they can open their own savings accounts, their own bank accounts. As soon as they turn 18, they come running back to my classroom and say, I want to start investing now. I want to start building credit. Can you help me? Now's the time. So I've had students fully fund Roth IRA accounts before they even graduated from high school. Other students have really navigated the student loan process really well by seeking out scholarships. One of my proudest moments ever was a student, she was working on her final budget in my class, and she was getting so frustrated. And I said, what's going on? And she said, I'm never going to be able to afford being an adult. And I said, what's going on? And she said, my student loan debt, it's out of control. And she had already accepted the college that she was going to, and I happened to know about a scholarship at that college. We called them up, we had a 5-minute meeting, and we saved her $160,000 in student loan debt. And so it's just, thanks. It's just having those resources available in schools to students and having this education available is so important. And then on a state level, when I first started teaching personal finance, there were only 2 schools in the state that required this for graduation. 3 years ago, there were 12. And then over vacation, I just looked to see what was going on in the state right now. And there's 22 schools that require personal finance for graduation. And so I think that's just successful if we can empower younger people to be able to learn this, and then they often bring it home and they explain it to their families as well.
That's amazing. I'm sorry. That's just amazing. So success for, I'm just going to use Working Bridges as an example, because again, that is an employer-focused program that we operate out of United Way. And it is there to support not just employees in their personal stability, financial, mental health, substance use disorders, whatever could prevent them from being fully present or even showing up to work. The other part of that is to really look at the success of the employer. So we're not there just because we care about people and we want everybody to be happy and healthy and lovely. But we also recognize that the value of bringing this program to an operating business is we have to be able to recognize that the business is looking at their bottom line. So when I talk to a business about why should you bring Working Bridges to your employer site, I always start with what's your current retention? What's your turnover rate? What are the common issues that you're continuing to see as retaining and holding onto people? And I have not yet seen any rogue business that has some weird reason for this. It's consistent across the 32 businesses that we currently serve in the northern half of Vermont. And when we start offering that, the program and the thought about supporting employees, but we start in a communication way that the employer can appreciate and understand. It's like, oh, you get it. I need to make sure my bottom line is good. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. You can say that at the table. I don't care why you're at the table. Just be at the table and look at pathways to get to the same goal that we have. You want employees that stay. You want employees to be loyal to you. You want your business to be successful. We want people to be well and contributing in a whole person within our community. We have the same goal. So let's figure out how to do that. So retention is definitely a measurement, and we do quarterly reports to show not necessarily the retention, but how many employees we have supported in those specific areas that we have supported them in. And when the employer starts to understand, I never knew my workforce was struggling with this, and this. It's like, it's okay. That's not your job. It's all right. That's our job to understand that and to help people work through those challenges of food insecurity, financial instability, all of the things. When we look at our relationship with NorthCountry, one of those key things that we bring in our toolkit to help people is an income advanced loan. We make this available to people through our coaching, through our financial coaching. If someone shows up and says, my car just broke down, it's going to cost me $1,000 to fix, it's the only car in the household, I can't miss another day of work. Please hold. We're going to contact NorthCountry and see if we can get you an income advance loan for up to $1,500. Oh, but my credit is horrible. I have really bad credit. That doesn't matter because you're with Working Bridges. Our partnership with NorthCountry is based on they will take a considerable amount of risk. I mean, let's be honest, it is a risky thing that not many banks are willing to do, but they also know that holding that employee through that process is a resource coordinator that is there on site working with them. So success looks like, yes, you're stable. Yes, your bottom line of your business, you're holding on to an employee. This employee now feels more comfortable and supported in their workplace. That to me is immense success. The other pieces that we look at as well is, the variety of services that we can provide on site at the workplace. So it isn't just a place that people go in, punch their time clock and check out. It's talking to the employer about, let's think about the traditional benefits that you offer your employees. What are they? Okay, 401k, that's great. Health insurance, that's wonderful. Have you thought about how many of your employees, especially low wage, are really relying still on public benefits to make sure that they're housed, that they're fed, that their children have Medicaid, Dr. Dinosaur, that they have to fall within a certain income bracket to continue qualifying for those. When you, out of the goodness of your heart and for your bottom line, gives that individual who might be relying on public benefits in some degree, that dollar raise, most of us in this room would say, great, thank you so much. I thank you for acknowledging the work that I'm doing. For many people that are in that benefit area, public benefits, that $1 could equate to about $20,000, $22,000, $25,000 loss of their income. That dollar an hour isn't going to make up that difference. So we could encourage people, don't take the raise, just stay where you are. We're not like that, though. We're not like that because we're also thinking from the employer viewpoint of we want your employer or employee to keep growing and to keep advancing and to continue succeeding and not be stuck in what is known as the benefit cliff. So that is a piece of the work that we do when we work individually with people frequently about how do we look at traditional benefits that your employer might offer and talk to your employer about maybe food support, maybe a meal distribution to start curving that budget area that you might be feeling the strain with. And then also bringing in our community partners to come in and talk to employees about what other options might be available. So again, it goes back to seeing the whole person, working with really wonderful financial institutions to make this possible and open the door, because that door is not open for many, that especially that are that low and middle class income right now. So success is more people just advancing in whatever makes sense to them and bringing along as many partners as we can in this work together.
I am really enjoying this community conversation. We have 2 questions left, I think, for this one. We'll start with Kathy, go Mike, then Tawnya, then Courtney, just to mix it up a little bit. So Kathy, here we go. So, specific to your organization, what are the challenges and barriers that either are making it difficult for you to accomplish your work or to expand your impact? And what's your organization doing to overcome those challenges?
So there's a lot of uncertainty, in case you didn't know, in healthcare right now. It starts in so many different places. It's reimbursement related. It's guideline related. It's just it's a lot of unknown and unnecessary, I think, things that are happening right now in our industry. That being said, it's just very hard to have the resources that you can dedicate to dealing with some of these things. If we get a change saying, immunizations are going to be changing next year, we go down this path, and then we have to figure out a way to make sure that this is beneficial for our patients, that they're not at risk, and we have to implement those changes. Sometimes these are changes that are completely out of our control. They're completely out of what the individual providers are thinking that is in the best interest of patients even. And that's very hard for people to have a different mindset based on what others are dictating that they must do. So that's very hard in the come by right now. Before they were a little more easily accessible, and resources. I don't just mean financial resources. I mean technical support in some of these areas that we're having to deal with. Very hard to get direction from people that can give you good direction. So that's been, I would say, a very serious concern for us right now that we're dealing with. I feel like our workforce is not actually part of my major concerns. I think that we've got good quality people that still want to work. Yes, it seems like there's less people in the workforce, but I think technology, even though it can be good, it can be bad, it is the future. We have to be accepting of these changes, and we just have to realize how they can help us. Don't necessarily always look at the negativity of them. The risk of cybersecurities and all those things are very concerning for us. But we do have what I feel is very good infrastructures. We've got very good support systems in order to lead us in directions of increasing our technology advancements. And I think that's something that we're just going to all have to do in all of our industries. So I think that's good.
Well, I was going to joke and say the legislature, but they've been good partners to us. But it's the end of the session, so it always becomes a little bit of a challenging season. But piggybacking a little bit, one thing that is serious that has changed a lot in the last 2 years is the way the federal government is showing up for the state of Vermont. And what I mean by that is, all of the ways that we've come to depend on the federal government. 1/3 of our budget in Vermont is from the federal government, and we've seen, cuts from the Congress in the one big beautiful bill that will reduce the amount of SNAP benefits that come to Vermont, that increase our administrative costs to administer the SNAP program. They've cut Medicaid, and we haven't even felt those impacts yet. They're going to be felt into the future. The Affordable Care Act subsidies have gone away, which were really critical to so many Vermonters. It was something like $60 or $70 million a year that helped people get health insurance and pay for it, have gone away. The other part that is really impactful to me, and this is where we have done something about it, is the federal government's also now targeting the most vulnerable members of our community, our non-citizens, our new Americans. And, they play such a vital role in the Vermont economy. If you just want to look at it from an economic standpoint, new Americans have $1.7 billion of GDP for Vermont, $1.2 billion of buying power. They pay over a $500 million in taxes, more than they receive collectively in benefits. They're younger. They're more connected to the workforce, meaning a higher percentage of them are working than someone that was born here in Vermont. So it's the exact kind of population we want to be attracting more of and supporting. And they are literally growing our food, building our homes, powering our facilities. And we don't need to be targeting them and sort of maligning them. We need to be supporting them and providing them opportunity. So one thing we did outside of the treasurer's office, but one thing I was very involved in the last year, was starting something called the Vermont Immigration Legal Defense Fund, which was had a goal of raising $1 million to build out the legal infrastructure in Vermont to make sure everyone in Vermont had their due process rights upheld, their constitutional rights upheld, and that they weren't violated, that they had a lawyer that was standing by them when they were subject to a deportation case or some other immigration matter. because that's so critical. This process is confusing and challenging. We have been able to, these organizations that we provided grants to have been able to hire more than 15 professionals now, 8 lawyers. And when we started out at the beginning of this administration, there were only 2 lawyers that did this kind of work, and there were 30,000 foreign-born Vermonters that lived in our state. So we knew the need was there. So to be able to expand that capacity has been great. To be able to have those lawyers that are the experts then train on top of that 100 other lawyers to do pro bono cases, we've really significantly expanded that legal infrastructure in Vermont. So we had the goal of raising $1 million. I just got an updated number that we're at $960,000 after 1 year. So we're almost there. But it's just an example of, you know, we have more limited resources and we have more challenges now than we did 2 years ago, and we're trying to find our best ways to respond to them.
Anyone who knows me in this audience, in this audience knows that my every time we've gone through a flood, a pandemic, a change in federal administration, cuts in SNAP, my first response is always, don't waste a good crisis. Don't waste it. Because in these moments of fight or flight, or something's going to be taken away, you are more willing to think a little bit outside that box. And how do we overcome loss of SNAP food benefits? I think that, I mean, we just experienced that, 4 months ago when there was a stop. There was no more SNAP benefits coming in. So what I see in my world of nonprofit, and you know, our logo is United is the Way, so you wouldn't expect anything less, but we collaborate so effectively with other nonprofits, and not just nonprofits, but our employer sites, our banking, financial institutions, really looking at now is not the time to go quiet, to go solo, to be siloed, but to be able to see, what do you have over here that we could use together and leverage greater resources? You know, healthcare, same thing. We're working tremendously with Central Vermont Medical Center and also Northeast Kingdom Hospital to look at how do we bring accountable communities for health, which look at the social drivers of health, to offset the high cost of healthcare. We have to be able to do these things together and look together effectively of solutions, and not be afraid of a crisis, but look at that as an opportunity. And I'm not always glass half full. There are moments for sure when it gets real and you see people suffering and you say, okay, but I fully believe in the community that Vermont has, and that when you know what hits the you know what, we come together. We come together, and that is something that we have to continue respecting and acknowledging and really appreciating about this fine state. And nonprofits get to talk a lot about collaboration, but it is the more quiet partners, you know, when we get donors show up. They don't necessarily want their name shouted, but without that donor, without that financial backing, we cannot collaborate effectively and find key solutions. And because I am not always glass half full, I will say that the competition for funding right now is extreme for nonprofits because of a decrease in federal and state support, because of, you know, fiscal challenges for the state for sure. How do we begin to talk to donors in a way that if you invest in us, you're going to be investing in our federally qualified health center because we partner with them. So your dollar goes a lot farther, but it's really talking about it openly and respecting each other's role in how we conquer this. Thank you.
So where there's challenges, there's opportunities. And I'm looking at a room full of people right now and I'm thinking, ooh, everyone could help with this challenge. So Vermont right now is at a pivotal point in the education system. So if you weren't aware, in Vermont, we're one of the few states where every school can decide their own graduation requirements. Okay, it's kind of weird, I think, but because the student will go from Winooski to Burlington, for example, and then they'll have to kind of start all over because Winooski might require something different than Burlington. So I think we're off to a great start in the fact that now every high school is going to have, here's the things that students must need to graduate. So that seems to make sense. The Agency of Education was tasked with coming up with that list, and I was so excited because personal finance was one of those things where every student to graduate high school to get a diploma, and I think 95% of the state agrees with this, that personal finance would be a requirement for graduation. And so things are looking really positive. And then I went to a State Board of Education meeting where they have a subcommittee now that's making the final decision. And the subcommittee took some testimony, and the testimony suggested that personal finance live as an elective in math. Only after a student completes Algebra 2 and geometry do they get to, okay, I'm not the only one. All right. Okay, I feel better now. But that was the suggestion that was made. And so right now in Vermont, the door is open. They're going to be taking testimony from the public. And so this is a great time to have voices heard. There are 30 other states that already require personal finance to graduate. So I hope Vermont is the 31st. And if people are interested, maybe afterwards, if I don't want to dominate here, but afterwards, if people are interested, I'm happy to collect your email and just share ways that that's moving forward. But I really think that every Vermont student needs access to this education, so then they can have the partnerships with the credit unions and the banks and the community and know how to use those resources wisely. The specific action would be for people to go back to their local communities, talk to their local schools, make sure that this is something that's offered in every school. And again, feel free to connect with me after. I'm happy. Oh, so many questions. Okay. Required, guaranteed, yes. Right, and that's where it's really important, because at a lot of schools where it is in math already, teachers have told me that students who might be on a special education plan might not be able to access the material. And so this just really should be offered to every single citizen in our state, and every student. And I just see the power in it every day. And so I'm really passionate about that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And your answer is a perfect bridge to the last question. So we're going to start with you and go to Tawnya, and then Mike, and then Kathy, just to shake it up. So let's look ahead and let's think kind of positively. I talked a little bit about making dreams come true. What are your hopes and dreams for our communities? And how do you see each of us in North Country contributing to make those dreams come true?
I get to start. Okay. So my dream is for students to have the education that I did not have, and to learn this before they make big student loan debt decisions, before they just to think about the career options that are available to them too. So many of our students don't know that. So I think my dream is for every Vermont student to have personal finance as a class before they graduate. And I just see so many ways that people can get involved with that in North Country. When you go into schools and you do the reality fairs, you're starting those discussions. If you're starting those discussions with your local schools as well, your school boards, the teachers, finding out if personal finance is taught, how it's taught, if every student has access to it, or if there's barriers in place that are preventing certain students to get access to this education. I think these are all so important, and that is my dream, is for every student to graduate from high school with some financial literacy, where they can make some informed decisions for themselves and set themselves up for financial success in the future. I always start my class on the first day when students come in. I give them a check for $1 million, and that's what's on their desk when they come in. And they always have to write down what they would do with that money. And they often will go on trips, or like go on shopping sprees, or buy some nice gold chains. So they have lots of plans with what they would do with the $1 million right away. And then they reflect back on that at the end, and they realize how important it is to save that money, invest that money, have that money grow, start their own business, buy a house for their family. And so this education just really shifts the way that people look at money. And I think it's so important for everyone to have access.
I like Courtney's dream a lot. I just want to piggyback on you. Yeah. So I think again, in my office, there's a whole row of magic wands because we all want to make the wishes and make things beautiful and all the dreams to come true. But when you simplify it down to, what we look at every day, a dream is for anyone who is working with United Way and is currently employed, that they have the opportunity to continue advancing at their workplace. And it sounds so simple. And it sounds like, well, yeah, you just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and do that. That's not necessarily true nowadays. So a dream is for an employer to fully understand what their employees might be facing and to also reach out and ask for help in stabilizing their employees as well, knowing that it is going to be a benefit for all people in the long run. A dream is for everybody in this room to write a $5 check to Green Mountain United Way. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of people in this room. But looking at how do we continue to partner with each other? How do we continue to find commonality among all the people that are in this room right now? Because we are all connected in a very strong way. And it is the belief in the well-being of each and every one of us. So I think that is, again, it's a little bit of a unicorn dream, but say hi to each other, appreciate each other, give each other a hug if you're open to that. And just know that your worth as an individual, I wish that you discover that. And my dream is that you know that about yourself.
Well, I often finish a talk that I give about Vermont and the future of Vermont with this concept of change. And my dream would be that Vermonters would become more comfortable in embracing generally of change. And why I say that is because, we are a state, in my opinion, that's in desperate need of change. We have a lot of systems that aren't working. You look at the cost of housing and it's gone up like 114% over the last decade. Our wages have not even kept up with half of that. You look at the cost of childcare, we pay the highest percentage of our income toward childcare. Our healthcare costs have doubled. Our homelessness rate has gone up by 4 times over the last 10 years. So there is a lot of change happening to us. It's just negative change. We need to be much more intentional about the future that we want to build in our state. And we have to be much more open about doing things differently. There's a joke that I always tell about how many Vermonters does it take to change a light bulb? Change the light bulb? That was my granddaddy's light bulb. And I think it underscores some of our challenges in our state. It's not working anymore, the light bulb. We need to change it, but we also want to hold on to that past, and that's understandable. But we are facing some profoundly difficult challenges, and we need to be just more comfortable embracing ways of doing things differently. Because if we don't even get to that collective action, then we won't be able to do any of the specific things that we need to get done.
Yes, I think they stole all my dreams. Oh, I would say I agree with all of those things. I would say my dream would be very basic in the sense of do something today that will make tomorrow better. If everyone did that, then it would be wonderful. With it, whatever that might be, everyone's got their skill. Everyone's got something that they can contribute, and I think the problem is that people just don't share that often enough. So that would be my very basic and simple dream.
I have so very much enjoyed this conversation with these terrific group of panelists. Can we please recognize our panelists for coming up and having this conversation with us again? Thank you so very much. And as members and community partners of NorthCountry, I really appreciate the time of coming out and celebrating our annual meeting with us this year and engaging in these conversations. And we have a lot of gratitude for each and every one of you. So that concludes our events for today. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their day.